This
of
conference
this
will
last
now
day.
be recorded.
Now we have Dr. Sri Rangacharyalu sir with us. Rangacharyalu sir did BTech in Mechanical Engineering, MTech in Industrial Engineering from FSI University College of Engineering, Tirupati. Then he holds a PhD from Indian Technology, Madras. Then he worked as assistant professor in Department of Mechanical Engineering, National Institute of Technology, NIT Calicut. And then he worked with IIM Trichinopalli. Now he is working with IIM Visakhapatnam. Then SAR dissertation focused on developing exact and heuristic algorithms for scheduling problems with non-regular performance measures. Then he worked as postdoctoral research fellow in the area of flexible manufacturing system at IIT Madras. SAR teaching interests includes operations management, management of manufacturing systems, operations research, advanced operations research applications. And SAR has published many technical papers in international journals, and he presents many papers in international conferences, and he holds membership in communities. Now, I am invite Dr. Sri Rangacharyalu sir to start his lecture on the topic mathematical modeling related to operations management. Welcome, sir. Please start your session.
Thank you. Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Sridhar, for the nice introduction. So I have already lost 6 minutes of this session time, but let me try to cover what I have planned for this session. So I have shared this PPT already with Dr. Sridhar. I hope he has shared this with you. Otherwise, he will share it with you. So I'm going to discuss this topic, mathematical modeling related to operations management. So I understood from Dr. Sridhar that the participants are having diverse background. So I picked up these three problems: the product mix problem, replacement problem, and course pairing problem, so that the interest of all the participants are alike. So I will first start with this product mix problem. So with the help of this problem, first I will introduce you how to construct a mathematical model. And I hope all of you know how to solve the models using Excel solver. In the Excel, there is a add-in called Excel solver. Using that, you can solve optimization problems. And then I will discuss a replacement problem, which can be converted into a network model. So a network can be constructed, and we'll discuss the advantages of constructing the networks. So there is some structure of these network problems. So once you are able to construct a network for a given problem, it will be very easy to construct the mathematical model, which can be solved using any optimization software. And then I will discuss a short case, a course pairing problem. We'll see in detail about what is this course pairing problem when we reach that point. So these are the three problems I will try to cover. I don't think I can cover even these three problems. If still time permits, then I will discuss a set covering problem, which is an integer programming application at the end. So this is the outline. So let me start with this product mix problem. So I've taken a very, very simple example so that you all can understand what the mathematical models are. So here is the problem. So there are a company, they want to manufacture two type products, a standard bag, a deluxe bag, and they have estimated these parameters. So the manufacturing process of these two products involves 4 operations, and these 4 operations are carried out in these 4 departments: the cutting and dyeing department, sewing department, next finishing, next inspection and packaging. So the profit contributions are estimated to $10 per unit for standard bag and $9 per unit for each deluxe bag. Similarly, these values 7 by 10, 1, these values indicate the resource requirement. So when the product goes through the cutting and dyeing department, it takes about 0.7 hours of time per unit of each standard bag. Similarly, 1 hour time is required for each deluxe bag in the department, and so on. And also there is a problem here only when there is a scarcity of resources. So if the resources are available abundantly, then there is no problem at all. So that is the reason why it comes under the category of a decision making problems. So you can see on the right hand side the time available in these departments. For example, in the cutting and dyeing department, a total of 630 hours are available. Okay. So within this time available, the problem now is how I should produce these two products. How many units? What is the quantity of production of these two products so that I get the maximum amount of profit? Because I have the data on the profit, so I may be looking at getting the maximum value of this profit. Okay. So the problem here is to find out the number of units of standard bags. You may call that as X1, variable X1. Number of units of deluxe bags, call that as variable X2. So there are two variables here. So you need to decide the values of these two variables that gives the maximum amount of profit. For example, if you say I will produce 100 standard bags and 100 deluxe bags, that gives a total profit of 10 into 100, which is 1000. And from 100 deluxe bags, I get a profit of 900. So total profit is 1900. But I should also verify whether the resource available is sufficient enough for me to produce these quantities or not. So if you look at the cutting and dyeing department, the time required per unit produced is 0.7 hours. So if you produce 100 standard bags, the time required is 70 hours. Similarly, when you produce 100 deluxe bags, the time required is 100 hours. So total 170 hours, which is less than or equal to the 630 hours available. Therefore, the time available in cutting and dyeing department is sufficient for me to produce these quantities. Similarly, I can calculate the time required in the other three departments, sewing department, finishing and inspection and packaging departments, to verify whether the resource available is sufficient or not. Now the question here is, what should be the values of this X1 and X2? That gives the maximum value of profit. So this 1900 profit corresponding to these production quantities of 100 and 100 may not be the maximum. So what should be the values of X1 and X2? So I can actually construct or develop an optimization model, a mathematical model, which can be solved using any optimization software that gives me the best solution. The best solution means the optimal solution that gives the maximum profit value. Okay. So how do I construct the model here? I can represent the profit. So what I need to do is the profit, total profit, and the total time required in each of these four departments, I should express in terms of these two variables, X1 and X2. So if I do that, the profit contribution is given by 10 into X1 plus 9 into X2. So that is my profit function. So this is called the objective function. As most of you are aware about this, it is called the objective function. Sorry. So this is the objective function. Because it is a profit function, I would like to get the maximum value of this. So maximize 10x1 plus 9x2. So what are the other conditions? The resource condition. So the resource required in the cutting and dyeing department is given by 7 by 10 x1 plus, for the deluxe bags, the time required is 1 x2. Okay, I will write the constraint here. So 7 by 10 x1 plus 1 x2. That is the total time required in the cutting and dyeing department. It should not exceed the time available, which is 630. Likewise, I can write this condition for the sewing department, finishing and inspection and packaging department. So I will get, these are called constraints. These are called constraints. Okay. So I will get total 4 constraints. So C1, C2, C3 and C4. And then I also know that the production quantities cannot be negative. So I will write that condition as X1, X2 greater than or equal to 0. So this is called the non-negativity condition. Non-negativity condition. So the model has an objective function, a profit function which has to be maximized, and then the 4 constraints, so C1, C2, C3, C4, and the non-negativity condition. So actually this is a linear programming model, because if you look at the expressions here, all the expressions in the objective function as well as in the constraints, they are all linear, and hence it qualifies to be called as a linear programming problem. So this LPP, linear programming problem, can be solved using Excel solver to get the optimal solution. Okay, so I'm assuming that all of you know how to use Excel solver to solve the optimization problems, and hence I'm not going to explain you how to solve this mathematical model in Excel solver. Okay, I will skip that part so that I can cover the other 2 problems in detail. Now let me move on to the next one, the replacement problem. Okay, so what is the problem here? Look at this data. So this data tells us the annual maintenance cost of an equipment. So the equipment here is a car. The car can be considered as a equipment. So the annual maintenance cost depends on the age of the equipment. If the equipment is aged, then the maintenance cost will be higher. So if you look at the data, when the age of the car is 0, that means if you have a brand new car, then the maintenance cost in the first year is only 3,000. If you have a car of say 3 years old, then the maintenance cost is 8,000 rupees or $8,000. So that is what the maintenance cost, which depends on the age of the equipment. Okay, but the department which is considering this problem, they don't want to keep a machine or the car which is of 6 years old. So when the car becomes 6 years old, they dispose of that and they buy a new car. So basically they are looking at a planning horizon of 6 years. Okay, and also there is a scrap value or salvage value. So if you sell the car at the end of 1 year, that means if the car is 1 year old, then by selling it you will get a $50,000. Similarly, if the car is of 5 years old, if you want to sell it, you will get $2,000. And if it is 6 years old, you will not get anything. The scrap value is 0. So this is the data we have here. So how I should take the decisions in the 6 years planning horizon such that the total cost during the 6 years is the minimum. That is what the problem I am looking at. So I can actually construct a nice network for this problem. This problem can be solved in many ways. Okay, so the idea here is not to solve the problem. The idea here is how to construct a network for this problem. Okay, we want to understand the network structure, the network problems. Okay, so this is some other data. The new car costs $26,000, and the price of a new car will increase at the rate of $500 each year. So when the car is 1 year old, if you want to sell that car, you will get $15,000. But if you have to, because you have to buy a new car at the end of 1 year, because you are selling it off, you have to spend $26,500. Because after 1 year, the cost, the selling price, the purchase cost becomes $26,500. Every year it increases by $500. And the maintenance cost depends on the age of the equipment. So we have already discussed that. And the department can sell the car and purchase a new car at the end of any year. Now let us look at the construction of a network in here. So you assume that, imagine yourself that you are planning, you are walking through the 6 years time. So here the nodes, the circles represent the nodes which represent a point in time. So the node 1 here indicates the beginning of first year. Node 2 here indicates the beginning of second year, and so on. Okay. Now assume that you are at the beginning of the first year. Okay. Now if you decide to maintain that car for 1 year, that means if you decide to sell that car at the end of first year, so you walk from the beginning of first year to the beginning of second year. Now here the decision is to sell the car and buy a new one. Only then we connect this node 1 and node 2. But at the beginning of the first year, if your decision is to continue with the car for 2 years, then you should connect an arrow from node 1 to node 3 like this. Okay, so if you at the beginning of the first year, if your decision is to sell the car after 1 year and buy a new car, then you walk from node 1 to node 2. But if your decision at node 1 at the beginning of first year is to continue with the car for 2 years, after the 2 years, if you want to sell the car, then the arc that you should consider is from node 1 to node 3 and so on. Similarly, if your decision at the beginning of first year is to continue with the car for 3 years, then you should consider the arc 1 to 4. For 4 years, you should consider 1 5. For 5 years, 1 6. For 7 years, 1 to 7. So node 7 here indicates the beginning of the 7th year. As node 1 indicates the beginning of first year, node 7 indicates the beginning of 7th year. And if you consider the arc 1 7, you have decided to continue with that car for 6 years. That means the entire 6 years you are going to run with the same car. But at the end of 6 years, that means at the beginning of 7th year, you have to sell that car and you have to buy a new car. So we are looking at a planning period of only 6 years here. Okay. Now, suppose now you have to find out what is the cost associated with each particular decision. Let us consider the arc 1 2. So here in this network construction, each arc here represents a decision. So arc 1 2 represents the decision of maintaining the car for 1 year and then selling off. Similarly, arc 1 5 represents a decision to continue with the car for 4 years, and at the beginning of 5th year you have to sell the car, and so on. Okay. So for each particular decision, we have to find out what is the cost associated with that. So let me explain you a couple of computations, and then we can see how to construct the complete network. Now you consider the arc 1 to 2. Okay, when you consider arc 1 to 2, what is our decision? Our decision is you have a new car here at the beginning of first year. You would continue with the car for 1 year. That means you move to the beginning of the second year. There you sell the car and then buy a new car. That is what the decision. Okay. So what are the various costs associated with that decision? Okay. So let me do that computation here. When you consider the arc 1 2, because at the beginning of first year you have a new car. When you consider 1 to 2, you are actually walking through the first year. So in the first year, what is the maintenance cost? So if you go back and see the maintenance cost, it is 3,000. For a new car, the maintenance cost is 3,000. So this is the maintenance cost. Now at the end of first year or at the beginning of second year, now you are going to sell this car. So at this point, the age of the car is 1 year. It is 1 year old. So because it is 1 year old, when you sell that car, you will get a scrap value or a salvage value of 15,000. So in the calculation here, we'll show the cost with a plus sign and the income or the value that you are going to get by selling the car with a minus sign, so that the total value after the calculation will give us the cost. Okay. So 3,000 is the cost, maintenance cost, and then there is an income of 15,000, and then you have to buy a new car. That is at the beginning of the second year. So its price is 26,500. That is the price. Okay. Therefore, what is the cost associated with this arc? So we can compute this value here. Let me just take a moment so that I can give this value. Anyway, we can do a simple calculation, but I want to open my Excel file so that I can just put the value here instead of spending time in the calculation part. So just give me 10 seconds so that I will open this Excel file. I have another system. I will open that Excel file and give the values. So by the time it opens the Excel file, I can actually compute the value here. So which is minus 12,000 plus 26,500, which is 11,000. I'm sorry. Okay, so there is some value here. Then let me do one more calculation. Let us say I will consider the arc 1 5. Okay, arc 1 5. So what is the meaning of this? So I am at the beginning of the year 1. Now I have decided to continue with that car for 4 years. Then I will reach the beginning of the 5th year. Now at the beginning of 5th year, I will sell that car and buy a new one. Okay, so I'm using that car for 4 years. So in the first year, what is the maintenance cost? It is 3,000. Second year, maintenance cost is 4,500. Third year, maintenance cost is 6,000. And fourth year, maintenance cost is 8,000. So this is the total maintenance cost. Now, at the end of 4 years, that is at the beginning of the 5th year, I'm going to sell this car. So when I sell this car, I will get a value of 4,000. I'll get $4,000. So that is a salvage value when the age of the car is 4 years. Now I have to buy a new car. So because it is after 4 years, that is at the beginning of 5th year, the purchase price of the car will be 26,000 plus at the rate of $500 for 4 years. So which is 28,000. So that is the purchase price. So this will give us a total cost of 1 to 5, 45,500. Okay. So whereas the first one, it is 14,500. So if I show the value of the cost corresponding to the arcs here, on arc 1, 2, I will write 14,500, which represents the cost corresponding to this decision. For 1, 5, the cost is 45,500. So I can show that cost here as 45,500 and so on. Okay. So till now, we have seen the decisions with respect to node 1. So when you are at beginning of first year, these are all the possible decisions that you can make. Okay. You can take a decision 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4 up to 1, 7. But now, when you reach the beginning of the second year, let us say you are at node 2 now, at the beginning of the second year. Okay. Now here you have to take a decision again. Suppose if you reach here, how can I reach the beginning of the second year? By walking through this arc 1, 2. That means if you have decided at the beginning of first year that you go with the car for only 1 year, and at the beginning after 1 year you decided to sell the car, only then I will reach this node. Okay. Otherwise I will not reach this node. Okay. Suppose I reach this node beginning of the second year, then I have to take a decision again. So what sort of decisions I can take? I can take a decision here to continue with this car for one year. That means I will move from 2 to 3. I'll move from 2 to 3. All right. So when I move from 2 to 3, what is the cost associated with arc 2, 3? So we need to compute that. Okay. So the first thing is the maintenance cost. So we are going to compute the cost associated with arc 2, 3. So what is the condition here at the beginning of the second year? You have a new car because you have reached this node 2 from 1 through this arc. That means by taking a decision at this point. So once you reach this node 2, you have sold that car and you have bought a new one. So you have a new car now. You have a new car. Now with that new car, you are walking into the next year. Therefore, because it is a new car, because the age of the car is now 0, the maintenance cost is only 3,000. So this is the point you need to understand here. The maintenance cost is not 4,500, it is 3,000 because at the beginning of second year, you have a new car. Okay. Because you have a new car, the age of the car is 0. For that car, the second year is the first year. The second year of the planning horizon is the first year for that particular car. So the maintenance cost is 3,000. Then the salvage value. So after this year, that means at the beginning of third year, you have to sell that car. Okay. So at the beginning of third year, this car will become 1 year old because you have a new car at the beginning of second year, and after 1 year, it becomes 1 year old. So when you sell that, you will get a value 15,000. Then you have to buy a new car. Now you are at the beginning of node 3. So when you have to buy a new car, the cost of the car will be $27,000. So this is the cost. So the cost of the corresponding to the arc 2, 3 is 15,000. Right? Am I right? So yeah, this is 15,000. So that cost I can show here on this network, 15,000. Likewise, I can calculate the cost associated with various decisions. Okay. So at the beginning of year 2, what are the other possible decisions? I can continue with the car for 2 years. So then the ARC24 should be considered. I can continue with the car for 3 years, then I should consider ARC25, ARC26, or 27. So these are the various possible decisions corresponding to node 2. Okay. Similarly, when you reach this node 3, you can reach node 3 in 2 possible ways. What are the 2 possible ways? One, you are at the beginning of first year, you have decided to continue with the car for 2 years and then you sell the car. So that is ARC13. So by taking that decision, I can reach this point. The other way is, I am at the beginning of year 1. I continue with the car for 1 year and then I will sell it off. I buy a new one. Then I continue with the car for 1 more year. I will sell it and I buy a new one. So there are 2 possible ways by which I can reach the beginning of year 3 or node 3. But once you reach node 3, again you have to take a decision. Okay. So that decision could be 3 to 4 or 3 to 5, 3, 6, 3, 7. So these are the possible decisions. Similarly, from beginning of node 4, the possible decisions are 4, 5, 4, 6, 4, 7. From 5, 5, 6, and 5, 7. And from 6, 6, 7. So these are the various arcs in this network. And also we have understood how to compute the cost associated with each arc. And we also know that each arc is corresponding to a particular decision. Okay. So once you construct this network, then it will be very easy for us to construct a relevant mathematical model and which can be easily solved using Excel solver. Okay. So before I do that, what I will do is I will explain a simple network by taking a transportation problem. Maybe some of you are aware of the transportation problem, but those who are not aware, don't worry. It is a simple problem. I will explain quickly, and then I will tell you how a model can be constructed for that. Then we will come back to this network and see how the mathematical model can be constructed. Okay. So I will share a new screen now to explain that part. I hope you will be able to see this screen, the white screen. Let us say there are different manufacturing plants. One second. Right. So you have various manufacturing plants. Let us say plant 1, plant 2, and plant 3. And you produce a particular product. And let us say you have 1,000 units here, 500 units here, and 3,000 units here. So these quantities represent the supply at the manufacturing plants. And these products have to be transported to a distribution center or a warehouse or to a customer point. Let us say the distribution center 1, 2. There are 2 distribution centers, let us say. And you have to transport this product to the distribution centers. And let us say the requirement at these distribution centers are as follows. So 3,000 here and 1,500 here. So this is called the demand, and this is the supply. Now, if you look at this, the total supply is 4,500 and the total demand is also 4,500. Then it is called a balanced problem. Balanced problem. So always when you construct a network, you need to construct a balanced network. Suppose if the total demand is not 4,500, if it is say 4,000, let us say at the second distribution center, the demand is 1,000 instead of 1,500. Then what you can do is you can create a dummy. Let us say for the sake of discussion, the demand here is 1,000, then the total demand is 4,000 only, in which case you create a dummy where the demand is 500. And this dummy can be connected to these 3 plants. So actually you have to show the arcs here to represent the transportation quantities. So 1 to 1 you can transport some quantity, 1 to 2, similarly 2 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 1, 3 to 2, and so on. Okay. So one solution here could be 1 to 1 transports say 1,000 units. This supply is exhausted. Then I go to the next supply node where there is a supply of 500. Let us say I transport that 500 to distribution center 1. So this supply is exhausted. Then I have remaining 3,000 units at plant 3. Out of that 3,000, say I will send 1,500 units to distribution center 1, the remaining 1500 I will send to distribution center 2. So there can be multiple ways of meeting the requirement, but the point is, if you have an unbalanced system, then you can always create a dummy as per the requirement. Then you can convert the problem into a balanced problem. For more details, you can refer to any basic operations research textbook. You will understand that. Okay. So instead of going into that details, let us consider the network where the problem is balanced. That means the total supply is equal to total demand. Okay. Now, how to construct a mathematical model? It is very easy. So in this network, there are two types of nodes. So the plant nodes, these are all called the supply nodes, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Similarly, the distribution centers, because there is a requirement, these nodes are called demand nodes. Okay. So in this network, we have two types of nodes, supply nodes and demand nodes. So in order to write the equations easily, let me call this distribution center 1 as node 4, distribution center 2 as node 5. Okay. So 1, 2, 3 are supply nodes, 4, 5 are demand nodes. Now, please follow carefully. I will consider node 1. I'll consider node 1. Now I am going to write the equation for this. The equation is for flow out minus flow in. This is what I am going to calculate, which is called net flow. Net flow of node 1. Flow out minus flow in. So what is the flow out of this node? How I am sending this 1000 units from node 1 to various distribution centers? That is what the flow out. Okay. So from 1 to 4, I'll be sending some quantity. From 1 to 5, I'll be sending some quantity. So that total represents the flow out of this node. So ultimately, I have to decide here from 1 to 4 how much I am sending. So that is X14. The variable, that is the transportation quantity, X14. Similarly, I have to decide from 1 to 5 how much I should send, which is X15, and so on. So for any arc in the network like this, let us say this is the arc which connects node I to node J. I have to decide the value Xij. In this particular problem, the Xij represents the transportation quantity. All right. So when I consider node 1 here, the flow out is X14 plus X15. That is the flow out minus what is the flow into this node? Nothing is coming into this node. Okay. There is no flow into this node. So flow in is 0. Flow in is 0. Therefore, the net flow for a supply node is equal to the supply. The supply here is 1000. So this is the standard equation for any network model. In any network model, if the node is a supply node, the net flow is equal to supply. Now let us look at node 4. Okay, node 4. Node 4 is a demand node. For any demand node in the network model, for any demand node, the net flow is equal to minus demand. Net flow is equal to minus demand. So for node 4, the demand is 3000. Therefore, the right hand side will be minus 3000. Now I will compute the net flow here. Flow out of node 4. Flow out of node 4 is 0. There is nothing going out of node 4. Okay. Then what is the flow into this node? That is X14, X24, and X34. That is what the flow into this node. So minus X14 plus X24 plus X34. That is what the net flow, and the net flow is equal to minus demand. Sometimes there can be other types of nodes called the transshipment nodes. Let us say this is a transshipment node or a transfer node. So you send the item to this transshipment or transfer node. This is called the transshipment node. Transshipment node. So in a transshipment node, you send the item from any particular plant to this node. From there, you send the product to the demand nodes. Okay. So basically, at a transshipment node, there is no supply, there is no demand, but it acts as a transfer node. So when you have such a node, whatever comes into this node must leave that node, right? So for a transfer node, the net flow should be equal to 0. So net flow is equal to 0. That's it. So if you understand these equations, net flow equal to supply for a supply node, net flow equal to minus demand for a demand node, and net flow equal to 0 for a transfer node, then you can construct a mathematical model very easily for any network problem. So for a transportation model, there are only supply nodes and demand nodes. You can always construct the model. In the same way, the replacement problem, we have seen how to construct the network. Because now the network is ready with us, we can immediately write the mathematical model for that. So all these equations represent the constraints. They are all represent the constraints. Okay, and you please observe, for every arc in the network, there is a variable. This is the decision variable. And for every node in the network, there is a constraint. And that constraint will be an equation. It is an equation because we are dealing with only balanced problems. If it is not balanced, then you cannot have equations. Okay, all right. Now let me go back to the PowerPoint. So we are here. Okay. So after we construct the network and after we compute all these costs, then the constraint equations can be written easily. Okay. So let me explain a couple of equations, a couple of constraints, so that you understand how to write the mathematical model, which can be solved in Excel. So now you look at this solution. So actually what we have done here is we have constructed what is called a shortest path network, a shortest path network for the replacement problem. That's what we did actually here, right? So you imagine that you have to move through the 6 years. You are at the beginning of the first year, right? So you are here. The +1 here indicates that you are at the beginning of the first year, and you have to move to the 7th node. That is at the beginning of the 7th year. So you have to you can assume that you have to walk from node 1 to node 7. Node 1 to node 7. But there are different ways, different paths to reach that node 7. So you can directly travel from 1 to 7. This is another possibility. 1 to 4 and then 4 to 6 and then 6 to 7. So there are different ways by which you can reach node 7. Okay, and each path here or each solution here represents a solution to the replacement problem. So let me first explain the connection between the shortest path and the solution to the replacement problem. So if you consider this solution in this network, say 1, 4, 6, 7. So that is a path I am considering here, 1, 4, 6, 7, right? So this is one solution. So I am here, I move to the beginning of node 4. From there, I will move to the beginning of node 6. From where I will move to the beginning of node 7. So this is the sequence I go through. Now, this relates to what sort of decisions with respect to the replacement problem that I have taken. So 1, 4 indicates I am at the beginning of year 1. I have decided to replace that car after using it for 3 years, right? I will use it for 3 years. After 3 years, that means at the beginning of 4th year, I will sell that car and I buy a new one, right? So for 1, 4, we have already calculated the cost. So that cost is 33,000. Okay. Now at the beginning of year 4, I have decided to continue with that car for 2 years. So after 2 years, I will sell that car again. So from 4 to 6, I will move. And the cost associated with the ARC 46 is 24,000. And then at 6, I have taken a decision to go to node 7. And the cost associated with ARC 67 is 17,000. So if these are my decisions for the 6 years, then my total cost is 74,000. But this may not be the best decision or best solution. For example, if you consider 1 to 7, this is also a solution. So what is our solution here? I have decided to continue with the same car for 6 years and then I will sell that car. If that is the case, then The maintenance cost is, it is 3,000 for the first year, 4,500 for second year, and so on. The total maintenance cost for 6 years. Then after 6 years, I will sell the car. When it is 6 years old, the salvage value is 0. But then I have to buy a new car. Its cost is 29,000. 29,000. So the value here is 75,500. So these are two different solutions here. 127 is one solution. 1467 is another solution. If I compare these two solutions, clearly 1467 is the best solution. So if I go through these decisions, in order to reach the beginning of 7th year, I'm spending $74,000. But if I take this decision, I'm spending $75,500. So it is very clear that there are multiple ways to reach the node 7. So you have to find out the best way to reach node 7. All right. So it is actually the problem of finding out the shortest path, because the cost associated with each arc here can be considered as some kind of distance. Therefore, you are here at beginning of node 1 and you have to reach node 7. So what is the best way to reach node 7? You have to find out the shortest path here. All right. Now, the mathematical model. So you can see here the +1 at node 1 can be considered as a supply. You are there. So there you can treat yourself as a supply of 1 unit. And node 7, there is the requirement of 1 unit, because you have to reach node 7. You can consider that as a requirement of 1 unit. Whereas nodes 2 to 6, they're all intermediate nodes. So if you reach a particular node, you have to leave that node, because ultimately you have to reach node 7. So nodes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 can be considered as the transshipment nodes or transfer nodes. All right. So if you look at this entire network, there are 3 types of nodes. Node 1, a supply node. Node 7, a demand node. And nodes 2 to 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they are all transfer nodes. So once you understand that concept, we can easily construct a model, the mathematical model. So let me just write 2 equations corresponding to 2 nodes, and then I will move to the next problem. Okay. Suppose I will consider, say, node 1. If I write the equation for node 1, then what is the flow out of node 1? It is x12. We don't know what is the value. So this 1467 is one solution I have taken. You have to look at actually the original network. So if you look at the original network, the flow out of node 1 is x12, x13, x14 up to x17. So this represents the flow out of node 1 minus flow into node 1. Because it is a supply node, there is no flow into that node, so it is 0. So this is the net flow. And because node 1 is a supply node, this net flow should be equal to the supply, which is 1. That's it. So this is the constraint number 1. Let me explain a constraint for node 4. So what is the flow out of node 4? It is x45 plus x46 plus x47. This is flow out of node 4 minus what is the flow into node 4, which is 14, 24, 34. x14 plus x24 plus x34. This is flow into that node. So this net flow should be equal to 0. Because node 4 is a transfer node, net flow is equal to 0. Likewise, I can write all these 7 equations. Because there are 7 nodes in this network, I can write 7 equations. There are 7 constraints, and hence it will lead to a mathematical model which can be solved using any optimization software. Right? I think you might have heard about various optimization softwares like Cplex, Lindo, GAMS, Gurobi. These are all optimization softwares, and you can easily solve this model with Excel solver also. So if you know how to use Excel solver, you please go to the solver, you solve this model, you will get the solution, optimal solution. Okay. Because we are saying that optimal solution, it has to be an optimization model. This mathematical model should be an optimization model. When you say optimization, there has to be an objective function,
So what is the objective here? The objective is the total distance. I want to minimize the total distance, right? I want to minimize the total distance. So how do I represent the objective function in terms of these variables? So here there are so many variables. A variable xij here indicates the presence of that arc in the shortest path, right? Which means if xij equal to 1, if j comes immediately after I, that means if I am traveling from I to j directly, then xij is 1. If I am not traveling from I to j directly, it is 0. That is what the meaning of this variable, right? So with respect to each arc, I have to take yes or no dash. So if you look at this solution 1467, it can be written as x14 equal to 1, x46 equal to 1, x67 equal to 1, and all the other variables are 0, right? So this is how we can represent the solution. But what about the objective function? The objective function is simply Cij xij, summed over all possible values of I and j. All right. So when you write the objective function like this, if xij is 0, then the term will not be there. If xij equal to 1, then that particular cost I am adding. That's all. That is the objective function here. So with respect to this particular solution, if I calculate the cost using this expression, it will be x14 into the cost. That means C14 will be there. Then x46 into cost. So the C46 is there. And x67 into 1. So C67 will be there. So this will give you the cost of this solution. All right. So in general, if you write the objective function here, it is simply sigma Cij xij. So if you want to write it explicitly, the objective function is like this: C12 x12 plus C13 x13 plus and so on. And the C12 C13 values we have already computed. We have seen how to compute the cost associated with each arc. All right. So this completes the model for the replacement problem. So I will just show you the Excel model. I have solved this model in Excel solver. So just to give a feel of how the model looks like, I will show that Excel file and the solution. Okay. I will just show that to you. Okay. So you can see here. These are all the costs that I have calculated. Okay. Now for arc 1-2, the cost is 14,500. Arc 1-7, the cost is 75,500, and so on. So there are various arcs and the costs here. For each arc, there is a variable xij, and for 7 nodes, these are the 7 constraints. Okay. First one is node 1 is a supply node, so net flow equal to 1. Node 7 is a demand node, so net flow equal to -1. The other nodes are transfer nodes, therefore net flow is equal to 0. So these are the 7 equations or 7 constraints, and this is the objective Cij xij. So when I solve this using Excel solver, it gave me the solution x14 equal to 1. You can see the solution here, x14 equal to 1 and x47 equal to 1, which gives a total cost of 67,500. So what is the meaning of this solution? So the meaning is 14 equal to 1 means you continue with that car for 3 years. At the beginning of 4th year, you sell that car and buy a new one. Then x47 equal to 1. So with that car, I continue with another 3 years, and after that, I will sell that and I buy a new one. So these are the optimal decisions with respect to the 6 years planning phase. All right. Okay. So before I move to the next one, any questions? I can take up any questions. If you have any doubts, any specific doubts, I can take up. Otherwise, I'll move to the next one. Okay. Fine.
Sir, hello.
Yes, please.
Hello. Sir, regarding flow in and flow out, you have mentioned some numbers now 100. Whether we can assume it directly or the flow in and then the flow out.
You are referring to the PPT or Excel file?
Excel files.
Excel file. Okay. So these values we actually have to compute. So when you write the formula here, let me explain just one formula. So when you have to calculate the flow out, say for node 3, okay, let us say I'm going to write the equation for node 3. So what is the flow out of node 3? I have already explained how to compute the node 3, the flow out of node 3. So it is x34, x35, x36, x37. So this is the flow out of node 3. So the formula here is, I'll write the formula, just follow me carefully. When I calculate the flow out, that is equal to x34. So where is x34? x34 is here. The cell reference O18, that is x34, plus x35, so that is here, plus x37, that is here, plus x37. So 34, 35, 36, 37. So that gives the flow out. Similarly, flow in, that is equal to, what is the flow into node 3? That is 13 plus 23. So x13 is here. This is x13 plus x23. x23 is here. That's it. So that is how I can compute flow out and flow in. Once I get these two, then net flow is simply equal to flow out, which is this, minus flow in, that is this. So this is how I can compute the net flow. All right. So that is how we can write the formulas here for net flow, flow out, and flow in. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you.
Fine. So let me move on to the next one, next problem. I will share that Excel solution also with all of you. After this session, I will share that Excel file. Okay. So we have only 30 minutes left now, only half an hour left. So I will quickly take you through this case. This is actually a practical case. I solved this for one academic institution. Let me explain this. So it is very relevant. If you are a faculty member in your institute, then you can come across this kind of problems. You will come across, right? So what is the course pairing problem? Let me first explain. So it is a very common problem in academic institutes, and it comes under the category of scheduling problems. And you might be aware of various types of scheduling problems, and we all know that the scheduling problems are generally easy to state but difficult to solve. Yesterday, Professor Ram also explained the traveling salesman problem, which was very easy to state, easy to understand the problem, but very difficult to solve, right? Okay, so let me explain the course pairing problem here first. Let us say there are 2 classrooms available, and there are total 12 slots available in a block of 2 weeks. So let me go to the next slide and explain it. Right. So you can see here, the courses can be scheduled on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So this is a weekend MBA program. The classes, this is for experienced or working professionals. So they cannot come on weekdays. Normally they have holiday on Saturday and Sunday. So they can attend classes on full day on Saturday and Sunday, and they will attend on Friday evenings. So this is the model. So on Friday evening, they can attend the classes. So this is one slot. Friday odd week. So the week 1 is odd week, week 2 is even week, week 3 odd week, and so on. Okay. So you consider the entire scheduling period into blocks of 2 weeks each. Okay. Week 1 and week 2 is one block. Week 3 and week 4 is second block, and so on. So odd week, in the first block, you have 2 weeks, the week 1 and week 2. So in week 1, on Friday evening, you have one slot. So classes can be held from 7 to 10. But remember, you schedule only one course here. Okay. So only one course from 7 to 10, maybe with a break in between, right? Similarly, on Saturday, you have 3 slots available, right? So slot 2, slot 3, and slot 4. So in fact, you can schedule, so let us say you schedule the course 1 here. You may schedule course 2 here, course 3 here, and course 4 here. That is possible. But there are 3 slots available on Saturday. On Sunday, there are another 2 slots available. So total, you have 6 slots in week 1, odd week. Similarly, in even week, you have another 6 slots available. So total, there are 12 slots in one block of 2 weeks. Therefore, in these 12 slots, how many courses we can schedule? Assume that there are total 12 courses that you have to schedule. There are 12 courses that you have to schedule. Okay. And also you assume that in every block, you need at least 2 slots. You need at least 2 slots for each course, or exactly 2 slots. You need exactly 2 slots for each course. Okay. So, given this scenario, can anyone tell me how many courses I can schedule if there is only one classroom available? There are 12 courses. For each course, I need 2 slots. There are total 12 slots available. So, how many courses I can schedule if I have only one classroom?
Only one,
Let
sir.
us say, let us say, slot 1, I have scheduled course 1, slot 2, course 2, slot 3, course 3, course 4, say course 5, and course 6. But this gives me only one slot. I need second slot because each course requires 2 slots. Okay. Therefore, in the even week, I will again give one slot to course 1, one slot to course 2, one for 3, one for 4, one for 5, and one for 6. So if you look at this particular solution, I have given 2 slots for courses 1 to 6. All right. But courses 7 to 12, I have not given even a single slot because I have only one classroom available. So in that classroom, I will run course 1 from 7 to 10 on Friday. In that classroom, I will run course 2 on Saturday, first slot. In third slot, I will run course 3. Fourth slot, I will run course 4 and so on. So the moment I have a second classroom, I can schedule another 6 courses. All right. Therefore, the 12 courses can be scheduled in the block of 2 weeks, satisfying this condition of 2 slots per course. It is possible. But then what is the problem here? The problem is, let us look at this data. Look at this data. So assume that these are the second year courses. In the MBA program, in the first year, normally all the courses are compulsory courses. In the second year, you will have to do elective courses. So assume that you are into the second year. So the 12 courses represent the elective courses. So the student can choose the electives. So from the list of 12 elective courses, a student can choose a minimum of say 4 courses, a maximum of 6 courses. A student cannot do more than 6 courses, but a student has to register for at least 4 courses. Okay. Now, if you look at this table, there are total 41 students. So these are the 41 students. Okay. Now, if you look at the first student number 1, the student opted for course 1, course 3, course 4, and course 5. So he has chosen only 4 courses. He has opted for only 4 courses. Now, if you look at student 2, the student opted for course 2, course 3, course 4, and course 11. So this student also opted for 4 courses. So in this table, a 1 indicates a student opting for a particular course. If 1 is not there, the student has not opted for that course. All right. Right. Now, if you understand this problem carefully, there are 2 classrooms. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run the courses in these 2 classrooms in parallel. So consider slot 1. Slot 1, that means Friday evening 7 to 10. I will run 2 courses in classroom 1, classroom 2. There are 2 courses. Okay. Suppose if I run course 1 and course 2, in parallel on Friday evening in the first slot, then can the student 2, I'm sorry, let us say you're running the course 1 and course 2 in parallel. Then because student 4 has opted for both the courses, he cannot sit for both the courses together because these two courses are running in parallel. If the student has to sit for course 1, he has to miss course 2. If the student sits in the other classroom, he will miss course 2, which is not possible. Therefore, there is a problem. So what I should do? A solution for this could be not scheduling these two courses in parallel. So when I'm running course 1, I will not run course 2, keeping student 4 in mind. So I will run, say, course 3. So I will run course 1 and course 3 in parallel. Okay. Therefore, for student 1, there is no, for student 1, with respect to student 2, again there is a problem. See, if I run course 1 and course 3, this student has opted for course 1 and course 3. There is a problem. Suppose if I run course 1 and course 4 in parallel, then student 4 has no problem because he has opted for course 1, he has not opted for course 4, so there is no problem. Okay, but if you look at student 1, this student has opted for course 1 and course 4. Therefore, I cannot run these two courses in parallel. It is also not permitted. So this is the problem here. The problem here is which courses I should pay. So ultimately, these 12 courses I have to run in pairs. So therefore, I have to come up with a solution which has 6 pairs of courses. 6 pairs of courses. So 1, 2 is one pair, 3, 4 is another pair, 5, 6 is another pair, and so on. So I have to come up with 6 pairs of the courses. But then when I come up with the 6 pairs, I have to ensure that the students do not opt for a particular pair of courses. All right. So normally it is not possible. It is not possible to come up with a 6 pairs of courses with a student opting for a particular pair, with a student not opting for a particular pair. Always there will be issues. So when a student opts for 2 courses which are running in parallel, then that is called an overlap. For example, if you pair the course 1 and course 2, because student 4 opted for both the courses, with respect to student 4, we call this as an overlap. We call this as an overlap. Okay. Therefore, I can find out the number of overlaps for each pair of courses. All right. For each pair of courses, I can find out the overlap. For example, if I pair courses 1 and 2, then how many overlaps are there? So overlap number 1, overlap number 2, number 3, number 4, and so on. So wherever the student takes both the courses, I'm only looking at course 1 and course 2. So when a student takes both the courses, then there is an overlap, right? Therefore, for every pair of courses, I can find out how many overlaps are there for each pair. So that data is shown here. Okay. So if I pair course 1 and course 2, there are total 18 overlaps. If I pair course 1 and course 5, there are total 9 overlaps, and so on. Okay. So this table can be computed. This table can be computed. So after you initiate the bidding process, elective bidding process, so you get this data. You know for each course how many students have opted and who has opted for that course. So once you collect this data, from this data we can compute this, the number of overlaps. Okay. So once you compute the number of overlaps, then you have to find out the course pairs, which pair I should consider. Okay. So if you look at these tables, for each course, this is the number of students opted for the course. So course 1, 27 students, course 2, 27 students, and so on. The next table on the right hand side, the courses are arranged in the decreasing order of the number of students opted for the course. Okay. So course 3 is the top course because this course has the maximum number of students opted, 32. Course 11 has been opted by only 3 students. So this course is at the bottom of the list. So why I have done this? because I want to come up with 6 pairs of courses, if I arrange the courses like this, intuitively, yesterday Professor Ram discussed some heuristics. So heuristics are they are actually rules of thumb. So I can come up with a simple heuristic here to come up with the 6 pairs of courses. So what could be the simple heuristic? So without even looking at any data, I can just say that the solution is course 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is one solution. But if I go with this solution, how many overlaps are there? Course 1 and 2, when they are paired, the number of overlaps are 18. That means you have to go back to the 18 students and you have to tell them that, see, these 2 courses are running in parallel. Therefore, you have to drop one of these 2 courses and you have to choose another elective. That's what you have to do. Okay. So let us just see with this solution, total how many students you have to approach, ask them to revise their options. So 1, 2, there are 18 overlaps. 3, 4. So if you look at 3, 4, there are total 21 overlaps. Okay, there are 21 overlaps. So 21. 5, 6. 5, 6. There is only one overlap. Okay, it is 1, and so on. So you will get total number of overlaps here. So that many requests you have to make. All right. Now, as Ram said, you look at the data, look at the quality, and try to come up with some logic to come up with a solution. That logic would be, when I pair in this list the first course and the last course, that means course 3 and course 11. If I pair these 2 courses, then there is a high possibility of less number of overlaps. We can expect that the number of overlaps would be the minimum possible, right? Because 32 students have opted for this course. Only 3 students have opted for this course. Even though if all these 3 students have opted for the course 3, there are only 3 overlaps. All right. So I can reasonably assume that when I make the pairs like this, the number of overlaps could be less. Okay. So if I adopt that approach, the solution here is 3 and 11. That is one pair. 1 and 10. That means I choose one course from the top, one course from the bottom in order to make the pairs, right? Then 2, 12 is the third pair. 4, 6 is the fourth pair. 8, 7 is the fifth pair, and 5, 9 is the sixth. So these are the 6 pairs I can make. If I do this, so these are the 6 pairs. If I do this, I have already computed the number of overlaps for each pair of the courses, this table, right? From this table, I will pick the value corresponding to this pair, and these overlaps can be added. So that means if I provide this solution, there are total 19 overlaps. So I have to go back to the students and tell them that you please change the option. You please change your choice. All right. So in general, as I told you in the beginning itself, it is not possible. In general, it is not possible to come up with 6 pairs which do not have any overlaps. We'll see very shortly whether such a solution is possible here or not. Okay. But if you come up with this solution, there are total 19 overlaps. But if you go by this solution, where you have not built in any logic into the solution approach, then it will lead to a large number of overlaps. You can see here itself, it is total 40. And you have to add 3 more numbers. So this is a very huge number. Now, let us look at a mathematical model here, because we have to see the mathematical modeling approach to solve these operations related problems. We have to see whether a mathematical model can be constructed to solve this problem. obviously, when you build a mathematical model and solve that, that will always gives you the best solution. The best solution. So let us see what is the mathematical model here. Okay. So I will define a variable xij. Xij. Let us first understand what is the meaning of this variable. Xij equal to 1 if courses I and j are paired, equal to 0 otherwise. Okay. So let us understand the meaning of this variable first. So I will go back to this solution. So with respect to this solution, the values of the variables are x311 equal to 1, x110 equal to 1, x212 equal to 1, and so on. So this is my solution. Okay. All the other variables are 0. So only these 6 variables are taking value 1. Other variables are taking 0. Now I can easily write my objective function. What is my objective function? Whenever there is a value 1, I am adding that overlaps. So you look at here, if x311 equal to 1, I am adding that C311. So call this C311 as the number of overlaps. So whenever the value of the variable is 1, I will add the number of overlaps. If the value of the variable is 0, I will not add the overlaps, because when the courses are not paired, the value is 0. When the courses are paired, then the value is 1. Therefore, now the objective function is simply sigma Cij. Simple. Okay. So whenever the value is 1 here, I am adding that cost, or I am adding the number of overlaps. Whenever the xij is 0, I am not adding. So this forms the objective function now. Okay. So we have understood the meaning of a variable here. We have understood the objective function here. So this objective function will give us the total number of overlaps. Total number of overlaps. Because we want to reduce this number of overlaps, we will minimize this function. This is my objective function. My objective is to minimize the number of overlaps. Then what are the conditions? What are the conditions? If you take any particular course, let us say course 1. If I take course 1, this course can be, it has to be paired with exactly one other course, because there are 12 courses, there are 6 pairs. Therefore, if you take any course, the course is paired with another course. Okay. Therefore, if I consider course 1, the condition is it has to be paired with exactly one other course. Therefore, x12 can be 1, indicating that 1 and 2 are paired, or x13 can be 1, 14 can be 1, up to x112. Only one of these 11 variables, 12, 13, 14 up to x112. Only one of these 11 variables can take a value 1, but all the other variables must take a value 0. So this condition can be put like this: x12 plus 13 plus 14 plus up to x112 is equal to 1. That's it. So this is the condition. So this condition or this constraint ensures that the course 1 pairs with exactly one other course. I will not consider x11. There is no need to define x11, because course 1 can be paired with one other course, not with the same course. Okay. Let me explain just one more condition, and then I will show the complete model. So let us take, say, course 5. If I take course 5 can be paired with course 1. Therefore, x15. Course 5 can be paired with course 2. Therefore, 25. Course 5 can be paired with 3, 35, 4, 5. Then 5 can be paired with 6. So 5, 6, 5, 7 up to 5, 12 equal to 1. That's it. So this is how you can write the constraint for each course. Because there are 12 courses, there are 12 constraints. Okay. Let me go back to the model. That's what I have written here. Right. So if for course 5, if j equal to 5, if I write the constraint, it is sigma xij i5 I equal to 1 to j minus 1, which is 4, plus sigma xji, j is 5 here. So 5i, I equal to j plus 1, that means 6 to n, which is 12, equal to 1. So if I expand and write this, it will be x15, x25, 35, 45 plus then x56, x57 up to x512 equal to 1. That is what this constraint. So I have to write this constraint for each j equal to 1 to 12. Therefore, there are 12 constraints. There are 12 constraints. Nothing else. Nothing else. So this model has an objective function. This is the objective function, which is to minimize the number of overlaps, and then the 12 constraints. And we know that all the variables are binary. They are either 0 or 1. So this is actually called a binary integer linear programming problem. You can see all the constraints are linear here. They are all linear. Therefore, it is a binary linear integer programming problem which can be solved using any optimization software. So this problem or this model I have solved in Excel solver, and I have obtained the solution. I will show you the Excel file, Excel model in a little while. But before that, when I solve this model, I'm getting the best solution. I'm going to get the best solution. I will show you the best solution. We have already discussed two solutions. If I go by this solution, this number of overlaps is a very large number. If I go by this solution, then the number of overlaps is 19. Okay. Now, when I solve the model, when I get the optimal solution, you can see here, this is the optimal solution, right? So it gives these 6 pairs of courses, and it gives me a solution with a total number of overlaps of 13. 13. See the first one where you have not built in any logic. Number of overlaps is more than 40. The second one, a heuristic approach, the number of overlaps is 19. The third one, optimal solution, the best solution, the number of overlaps is 30. Now, it is you who has to decide which solution I should get and which solution I can implement. Obviously, I can go ahead with this solution. Why? Why not I go with this solution? Why not I go with 19, and why I should go with 30? For that matter, for the sake of argument, why not I go with 40? See, when the student opts for a particular course, it would be really difficult to go back to the student and convince him to change his decision, because it is the student's choice. The students are, that's why they are called electives, right? But if you have to satisfy all the students, there is no solution, because I have only 2 classrooms. Definitely I have to pair courses, I have to run with courses in parallel. Therefore, I cannot satisfy all the students. Therefore, I should always look at a solution that allows me to go and talk to the minimum number of students, that gives me minimum number of changes required. So even I definitely don't want the solution. Even with these 2 solutions, if I have an option of having these 2 solutions, definitely, even if I spend some more time to get the solution with 13, I will definitely go for this. This is my first option. And as you can see here, it is a simple mathematical model with an objective function with just 12 constraints. If you have 18 courses, there are 18 constraints, and you are not going to solve the problems. Anyway, the softwares are there. You just plug in the model in the software, get the solution. So the best solution has 13 overlaps. So the best you can do is you go back to the 13 students, you ask them to change their choices. So it is always easy to convince the 13 students to change their decision when compared to convincing 19 students to change their decision. Right? There may be some, in the 19 overlaps, for the same student, there can be 2 overlaps. That is also possible. That means you have to ask the student to make 2 changes. All right. So this is a mathematical modeling approach to solve a real world problem. I have actually done this for a for a particular situation in an academic institution, and they have implemented this solution. So they have made these 6 pairs of courses, and they went back to the 13 students and asked them to make their change their choices. Okay. So before I discuss about this slide, let me just quickly show you the Excel solution. Okay. Just give me a moment. I will open that Excel solution. Okay, so I hope you can see this Excel file. Okay, don't worry about all these numbers and calculations here. All right, so yeah, so these are the 12 constraints. Just ignore all the numbers, whatever I'm telling you, just focus on that. So these are the 12 constraints. Okay, and this is the objective function. This is the objective function, and this model is solved using Excel solver. You know where the Excel solver is. Under the data tab, you will find the solver here on the right hand side corner, and using that you can, this is the solver. I'm just opening that solver also. Yeah, this is the solver. So using this solver you can solve the problem. When I solve this problem, I've got a solution or 6 pairs of courses with 13 modules. Right. So let me go back to the PowerPoint presentation. Okay. So it's already 1:26. I will just spend a couple of minutes and I will stop here. So conclusion: a mathematical model has been developed to solve the course pairing problem, which gives us the minimum number of overlaps. What if there are 13 courses? What if there are 13 courses? The number of slots you cannot change, because each block you have only 12 slots. So when there are 13 courses, you will have 5 pairs of courses. You will have 5 pairs of courses, and then the 6th one will be a group. So 5 into 2, 10 courses, and then 3 courses you have to run in parallel. So there may be 3 classrooms. In the 3 classrooms, you have to run 3 courses in parallel. So when the number of courses exceeds 12, then the problem turns out to be a clustering problem. It is no more a pairing problem. So pairing problem itself looks a little difficult, but the clustering problem is even more difficult, much more difficult. Okay, I'm not going to explain you the clustering problem. So those who are interested, you can contact me later. So I will stop here. I will not go. I'm not going to discuss the set covering problem because we don't have time. But you can go through the slides and see if you have any doubts. You can contact me anytime. My email ID is available, and I will share this PowerPoint presentation and also the Excel solution, all of you, for your benefit. So if you have any questions, I will take up in the next couple of minutes, and then we can stop here.
Hello, participants. If you have any queries, sir is waiting for your queries. Please
Yeah,
respond.
there are any questions? Okay, so you can always write to me. If you have any doubt, you can write to me. Email ID is available. Not just for any other kind of problem. See, in life, almost every problem can be solved in an optimal manner. In my life, I'm using the approach to solve so many problems. Okay, so I'll stop here after Sridhar. I think
Sir,
we can
good
stop.
afternoon, sir.
Thank you.
It was a nice presentation, and it is in session. but if required your in near future, I can contact for
Contact me if you need my services. Definitely yes.
Okay, sir. Thank
Okay.
you, sir.
So thanks for thanks.
So, participants, if you have any more queries, please ask. Sir will send the PPT. I will share it to all the participants. For further information, you can contact also. We'll share all the details of the speakers.
Okay. So
Hope,
Dr. Stephen, can I leave?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir,
Thank you. I'm leaving.
for sharing the concepts related to mathematical modeling very nicely. And all the participants have that good awareness about making the development of the mathematical model.